So today's episode is a 99 Mitsubishi Colt Evo 4 transplant. So the engine is currently knocking on one of the cylinders and you raise the RPM slightly. So I suggested to the customer before he pulled down source the items, the crank and rod or whatever, so they decide to go the forge route. So you got a Eagle crank, G parts here. You got Eagle crank, you got the Eagle rods. Currently waiting on the pistons next because they didn't know that you actually have to use forged pistons with the forged rods. Thought it was just a straight fit with the stock pistons and stock rods. So they got the main bearings, rod bearings, etc. So it's just the pistons that you have to wait on, but in the meantime what we do is drop the engine, strip it, clean it up, and be able to put in the crank, put in the bearings, check the clearances and prep the block then just to put on the pistons when they come then and put up so they can lift back in the engine then. Alright, so I got everything off that I could possibly take off from up top other than the power steering line. I usually leave that for last before dropping the engine. I forgot to take off the throat bearing and 2 axles, alternator and starting motor. Alright, so I got the engine on stand here now, so I can just dismantle it, take off the head, valve cover, turbo, then we can take off the pulleys and drop the sump, flip it and take out the crank then and wash out the block. Also I think I can recommend changing the water pump too. You can see some build up on the water pump here. I'm pretty sure when I go back up now I feel that gonna leak, so I'm taking the chances. Alright, so that pump wants changing for sure. It's still got only balance shaft. Doesn't have the balance shaft eliminated kit, or eliminated they would say. Or at least the belt is still a little tight. You can see all the coolant right down here too. It actually got a little water satellite bottom of the pump. Bunch of brass in the bottom of the sump. You can actually see all the sludge inside the oil, the metal inside the oil build up. A lot of brass on the corner on the bottom of the sump. So the majority of the rest of the bearings come up pretty good. I think one of them had a little extra wear on it too, but you can see that these aren't OEM genuine, or they are not ASL race bearings. They aren't even ASL alloy. They just like a normal generic brand. So I honestly don't know why the person who put up the engine last would have put them in on a performance engine to be size. I mean, OEM parts for these still sell. If you don't want to go for race bearings, I mean, you can go and get some genuine bearings or something, or order some genuine bearings. But crank still turn a little tightish, so that means some of the mains got a little wear too. So most likely the metal contaminated the rest of the journals then, and got inside the main bearings. You can actually see some of the brass from one of the bearings down between there. So you can also see that whoever put it up put back in these bolts wrong, because these two bolts usually go at the back of the block from manufacturer. The two 17 bolts usually go on the rest of the girdle, and these two 14 bolts usually go at the back by the plate here, so at the back of the crank. So whoever installed them in the wrong position. So you got the crank out, bearings out, balance shaft out. So what you can do is just take it outside now and give it a good degrease, then wash off and clean out all the oil galleries, etc. and prep it to reassemble. So you got water pump, got the plastic gauge, there's a fuel filter. What I also forgot to do was horn the block. So before you wash it off and clean it out, I will horn it one time then, so that I would just have to clean up everything one time. I would just plastic gauge 1, 3, and 5 just to make sure that the crank is straight, and clearances on the front and back for sure. If you inspect, everything should be perfect, but just double check your clearances for peace of mind and to let the customer know well what clearances you're working with, etc. We're going to give you information when you collect the vehicle. So alright, so not oil, anything, so just put on dry. Just torque down as it is right there then. Alright, so you can see this here now, you're seeing the squish, and the workshop manuals typically it's not 0.02 to 0.04 is the recommended clearances. Right now it is, this is a little wider than 0.02. Let me try this one now. Yeah, this one is 0.0. This is a little wider than 0.025, but all of them are within spec, so that should be good. What we'll do is torque it down, clean it up, wash it off, torque it down, and make sure it spins nice and free. everything there torque completely done. Got a nice smooth turn on the crank with everything torqued down. And then just check the end plate, make sure that the end plate is in spec. And that should be ready to assemble then the rods on the piston. Right, so you already got one of the caps taken off the rod. Got the bearings there. There's one bearing in there. One bearing in the cap. What you're going to do now is just rest on one of the pistons on the rods. Usually what I do, it's not written in stone, but this should point to the front of the engine. So where I put either the eagle marking or the rating for the part number of the rod, whichever I put on basically facing the front of the engine, I usually do it for all of them. So you always remember, well, if I put the front of the engine here on the piston, front of the engine here on the rod, reassemble one rod like that. Usually all the rest of the rods I put like that. So the front of the piston here and the eagle like that. So that means that all the other rods will be in the same direction. Then it doesn't make a big difference, but at least it keep the engine uniform. Right, so on to the connecting rod pins now. Gonna check the oil clearances on the connecting rods. So what I usually do is take out a set of the oil rings, the scraper rings and the expansion ring, and put them off on the piston. And I usually just put in those on the piston. It's most of the time just slide in pretty easy. Right. Right. That way I could turn the block upside down and don't have to worry about the piston just sliding back out or falling back out or anything. So when I put that, the stand I put there, I could just push the piston up, everything dry, and the piston would stay up there till I could put on the cap, then it won't slide back out. That's before putting in the rings, because the rings still have the gap. Also, if anybody interested in knowing, people hate the plastic gauge because they hate trying to get off the plastic gauge off a crank. I find my solution is very fast and simple. Little W40 on the end of the cloth. Get a couple of rubs. Get this other side of the drape off and wipe, and not to scrape, not to mark. The crank torque in the block, got on the oil pump, got back in the balance shaft, etc. Something that I find I see a lot of people doing when they're reassembling the balance shaft is this bearing they put back on backwards majority of the time. I guess because it has a lip at the back, and when they put it on, then they think it stops the belt from going that direction, but in natural fact it's supposed to stop the belt from coming forward onto the trigger plate here for the crank sensor. So usually people put it on. I was actually on backwards. Let me see if I can find the belt now, or what it did to the belt. Alright, so what usually happens to the belt is that it rubs on the plate each time that the engine rotates, and it rubs on the lip of the plate, and it cuts the side of the belt into a groove. So that's something I find that a lot of people get wrong, and it usually causes the balance shaft to snap within a couple miles or so driving. And balance shaft snap, then anytime the belt snaps and all the valves hit the pistons, then bend them, sometimes even pop them off. So anytime you decide you're using back the balance shaft, make sure always got the tension good, and make sure this tensioner, which is very important, is facing the right direction and not opposite. Right, so you can barely see the gap there showing the top ring. Is the reason you got to make sure and foil the rings, because especially the top number 1 ring on the piston, the gaps are very close. This is a 0.024, and you can see that it can barely fit. The camera fit in between. So for sure that all the top rings have to foil. The second ring for number 4 cylinder here now. Usually you could see a slight gap, but it still wants a bit of foiling also. That's all the rings are on. So you can take off the caps now and drop in your rods and pistons now. I think you should be able to just rest on your head now and torque it down. So I got the engine back on the box, transfer case back on. I just changed the fuel filter on the car. The customer brought a brand new filter, so I just changed that. So about to push it back onto the chassis then and lower the vehicle and reinstall the engine. So that should be it for me for the night. Tomorrow with some proper lighting and sunlight, should be able to just put back on the harness and other small things, the axles, and should be ready to start it. So everything sounds pretty nice and smooth and decent. I'm gonna put in the radiator and I'm gonna put in some coolant. Let it run out idle, then everything settling a little bit. accelerating, strong brake out. Alright, so I ain't got no leaks, I ain't seen no oil leaks, I ain't seen no coolant leaks. Everything still look tight. Nothing dripping. And double check the oil. And I think that should be it for this rebuild. Gotta feel pretty nice for stock turbo, stock cam, stock head, everything stock on about 8 or 9 pounds. So that was all that matters. It going out clean, no knocking, no splattering, no problems, nice, smooth, everyday, reliable. Alright, so with all that said, this is the end of another hopefully informative video for certain people who have never pulled on an Evo or rebuilt an Evo or decide to go anywhere down inside the Evo themselves. So hopefully it was informative enough and help any 1 or 2 people that isn't too knowledgeable about certain things. So that's it for now, and thank you for watching.